Hi, everyone. Thank you for
Hi,
joining us for
everyone.
our next
Thank
live
you for
stream.
joining us for our next live
I'll be your
stream.
producer for this session. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you for joining.
Hey everyone, welcome. If you watched Build Live, amazing. If you didn't, honestly, same. This section is for people who want the useful version, what actually matters, what has local relevance for ANZ developers, what's worth queuing up on demand tonight or tomorrow. Yeah, Aaron, introduce yourself.
Yes, well, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Aaron Powell. I'm part of the developer relations team at Microsoft. And I was actually lucky enough to go to Build in person last week. I just had a mental blank of like, was it last week? I don't know. I feel like it was weeks ago. But yeah, it was also only last week. I coming from Australia is obviously a long way to travel, so I can understand why a lot of people probably didn't attend in person. But it was a lot of fun to be there, and I'm super excited to join you, Michelle, to talk about the stuff that we announced, or at least some of the stuff we announced. So it was a 2-day event, and well, kind of can't condense that down into the next sort of like 45 minutes. It's just too much. So we're going to hopefully cover off, I think, some of the highlights we think are most interesting and relevant to you folks joining us today.
Yeah, but actually, before we start, I have never been to Build, and I imagine like it's a huge, glamorous event. Just tell us, what is it like? What is it like to be a person in America right now as well?
Well, I say glamorous is an interesting way to put it. I mean, I saw a conference venue and I saw a hotel room, and that was the extent. I was literally in San Fran for 4 days. I landed on Sunday night at about 7:30 p.m. and I left on the Thursday at about 7:30 p.m. So I literally was there for 7 days, which was made up of either prep work for the conference on the Monday, being at the conference Tuesday, Wednesday, and then like exhausted heap on Thursday before having to pack my stuff and head back to the airport to fly home. But it was like, it's a lot of fun. Like it was really, I gave a couple lightning talks and I helped out with some labs. So I gave some lightning talks about GitHub Copilot and I helped out with some labs around Microsoft Foundry. But then also spent a lot of time at the Ask the Experts area at Build, where we had, I was working on the GitHub booths, which just gave me an opportunity to talk to people about things like GitHub Copilot, show off some of the things we'd announced earlier in the conference, and just kind of get that kind of raw feedback from attendees. You only saw this like a few hours ago. What's your initial reactions? What are your questions? What do you want to know? And yeah, so that's always, I think, the most valuable thing for me is just being able to talk to people and either do a demo for them and show them that stuff, or actually let them be hands-on. We did some of that today, some of that at the event as well, where we just had some laptops with GitHub Copilot installed across the various forms of Copilot, from VS Code to CLI to the new Copilot app and everything kind of in between. And it's like, let's just build something. So what it's like to actually use these tools in an environment where you can just play around and build and experiment and things like that.
That where you mentioned those lightning talks, are those ones available as recordings? Will we be able to go and watch those afterwards or not?
Yes, my lightning talk, one of them was recorded. I was checking yesterday. I don't think the recording is available yet. It said the recording is coming, but it was about 10 things to like 10 awesome things about GitHub Copilot. So I had
maybe
15
you'll tell
minutes.
us that today anyway. Hey.
Yep.
Cool. And one more question about Build in person. Did you meet any famous people, like Scott Hanselman?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I think, another thing that is obviously a value add of being at an event in person is that while we might see these people, presenting sessions, people like Scott Hanselman, we had some tech influencers there, people like Ken C. Dodds, he was around, and like they might be seeming like these big figures on social media. They're all very approachable. So I had a chat with Scott Hanselman at one point just about OpenCore and things like that he was showing off. I had my juggling balls with me, and I was just juggling while there was like kind of no one around, and trying to encourage people to come up and talk to me. And Ken C. Dodds came over and he's like, "Oh, can I record you juggling so I can send that to my kids to say like he saw that at a conference?" So that's kind of like fun things that you get just by being willing to not see these people that we, like I said, we might see on talks or in live streams and stuff like that as unapproachable. Everyone that I have met at these events is very approachable, very open to having a chat and learning a bit about what you're interested in, things like that, not just share what they're doing.
That's very cool. That's the bit I would definitely love, the getting all the selfies. I mean, everyone knows I love to get all the selfies with the famous people.
Yeah.
And the swag. And you're gonna bring me something back, is that right? You've got something for me?
I did. I collected a bunch of stuff there. We had pins. I actually got some of them here on my desk. Let's find. I got myself a little clippy pin for various things, as well as I'll always have my Copilot with me in badge form now as well.
Cool. Okay, I suppose we better show them something.
Indeed, yeah. They didn't just come to listen to us talk for a while. Anyway, so yeah, like let's just like I said, there was so much stuff shared. But if you want to just go in and dive and have a look around yourself at all the other stuff, we've got a website up which has like links to all the sessions, or videos of the sessions, the announcements and things like that. This is that website, so you can go and have a look at that if you want. There's categorized down information on there, so you can jump into the various announcements. Whether it is like whether you're into quantum computing, we won't talk about that because that is not very much my area at all. Check out some of the demos from the keynote and from other sessions that are happening. We launched a new blog for command line. There was a lot of stuff around developing with the command line. I'm really excited by things like the WSL containers and like the new core utils coming into Windows, so being able to use more Unix than Linux-based commands. So you can go check out that through the command line blog. And so yeah, there's a lot of things that came out, and if you want to, so this is just kind of like a quick look at what that experience is. If you want to go dig into the news, and we'll go through. Where's the next slide? There it is. So this is that website at news.microsoft.com/build 2026. So you can go in there. If you don't want to stick around for the rest of this session, you can go and self-discover all the content yourself.
It's really good for if there's stuff you've been hearing people talk about or stuff that we mentioned today that you want to go deeper into, then you can go from there and just click through to the links of the topics that interest you. I know there's certainly quite a few things that will be top of mind for developers. Well, yeah, maybe.
I think for me, the number one thing that I think is topical for developers, given that I work in kind of the GitHub space and on a lot of Copilot things, is the new Copilot app. So we actually had announced this, but in a private or in a waitlisted preview. So it wasn't a private preview. Like anyone could subscribe to the waitlist, but we were slowly onboarding people into the GitHub Copilot app. But at Build last week, we removed that waitlist, and anyone could go ahead and grab it. So I've actually got it installed, and I've been using it for a couple of weeks, and I found it is a really good addition into the Copilot ecosystem and the way that I work with it. And talking to people at Build, it was really, I found it eye-opening to see what their perspective was on it. As someone who works quite close on the product, you can kind of get a little bit lost in thinking about just how these things work and like what the way you would use them would be. And someone made a good point of this, is that this looks like a very approachable tool for the less technical members of a technical team. So you think your BAs, your Scrum Masters, your product managers, the people like that, they're technical people, but they're not developers per se. So something like VS Code and Copilot is a bit of a confronting experience. Like it's very, like it's an editor. It's a very code first experience. Similar with Copilot CLI. Like again, it's not unapproachable, but it still feels very techy. And if you're not a technical person, but still in a technical team or a technically adjacent role, you want something that you can still get that experience with Copilot. You can still get the value that represents, but you don't feel like you're being forced to use a developer tool. And I think that's one aspect of this new GitHub Copilot app.
Well, before you went to Build, we were talking about it, and I said that I often use github.com and speak to Copilot chat in the browser there. And you were saying to me that I was unusual in that. And I was like, well, I'm surprised, because you get, you can have like the whole real estate of a terminal, whereas in VS Code, it's kind of, it's at the bottom or it's the side. It's not the full thing. You've got things blocking it. It's not enough. Whereas I can just talk to it and have that browser window open the whole day. And I'd assumed that this app was, that kind of thing, like I could just literally chat to it and have more space for it. But then like a bunch of my engineers were talking to me, and they were saying, oh no, that's just like the tip of the iceberg, Michelle. You want to get into worktrees. Once you see that, you will understand why this is a tool for developers as well. This is a tool for everyone. So yeah, maybe you want to show us more, Adam.
Yeah, so so just kind of, I guess, to walk through the experience. I've got it open. I've been doing some work actually this morning on it, and I'll kind of talk through some of the things that we're seeing here. But the starting point is the home section of it. This gives us a bit of an overview of maybe like work that we're picking up from the day before, things that have been added to like the GitHub repos that we've got open here with inside of it. So Awesome Copilot is a project that I work a lot on. So I see that there's some pull requests that I need to come in and review and stuff like that. And kind of like, this is that summary of what is upcoming. I can start a new chat. So this is just like a chat that would be against whatever repo I've got open. So Awesome Copilot or the actual GitHub Copilot app. I've been doing some work on that, or some other repos that I've got there. We've also got our little Mona icon here, and this is something I only learned about at Build. Is if you drag Mona off, you can enter the game, and we can now play. Oh, and I hit a bug because it's zoomed in. I don't have a great view of it, but yeah, there's a game built into the app that you can play while you're waiting for your agents to do their work. It's also got a voice mode, so if you want to just talk to it instead of typing to it, again, like I said, if you're not maybe in a technical role, you might prefer to articulate what you're trying to cover through voice. So that might be a better option there. We can get a bigger picture of the things that are, that I need to be working on, or the things that are most relevant to me, so I can see stuff that's in there. But I think the hidden gem here is these automations. So automations are something that will run on a schedule for you. So in this case, I have an automation that runs on Awesome Copilot. Every day it's then going to do a summary at 9 a.m. I've got it configured to run at 9 a.m. And then it will tell me about all the open pull requests and then render those back out. And we can create new automations in here. We've got a bunch of templates. Actually, I'll go browse templates. So these, like, maybe you want an issue triage. So like, get yourself started for your day of what issues are on the backlog and how does that need to do? What do you need to do with that? Anything that you could sort of envisage that you want to do, give it a name. So this is how you would then find it again. What kind of cadence you want to run it at. Like when do you want it to run? So like if I'm doing it hourly, then obviously that's not going to be a relevant one. But if I want to say weekly, what day of the week do I want it to run, and when do I want it to run, and things like that. Whether I want it to run locally or in the cloud. So locally is only going to execute while my machine is turned on, but I can then delegate these to run in the cloud. So cloud ones are only available for private repos, though, just so you can't pop something out into like a public repo, at least just at the moment. And then you give it a prompt, like, what do you want this to do? How do you want it to do it? Do you want to run it on autopilot mode, or do you want it to be a planning? So maybe you have it look at your backlog once a week and then build out a plan of what you, as the person that's got a bunch of assigned work, should be working on. What things are going to be dependent on others, what things can be done concurrently and stuff like that. What is the context you want to give it? So a project that I might want it to run at. And what model do I want it to use? I tend to use the auto model. So just let Copilot determine what is going to be the right model for the task at hand. I have not done a whole bunch of benchmarking and testing to figure out where I want everything to run through Opus 4.8 and kind of burn my tokens as quickly as I can. I'll leave it to auto, and sometimes it might run on the Haiku model, might run on the GPT-5.3, because they're just I don't need something that is like overly complex and things like that. But we can come in here and obviously select all the various models that you want, including the new Microsoft AI model, and we'll talk a bit about the MAI models a little bit later. Now,
I noticed like when you clicked on all models there, you see like quite a few other models and from like different vendors, but that's not as many as I see when I'm looking at it in code spaces. Is it different? Like you can see different choices depending on whether you're using this, whether you're using code spaces, whether you're using VS Code. Like what's all that about?
Yeah, to a degree, there's some. It's going to kind of depend what has been surfaced up by the particular tool. So, not all copilots are built the same. So some of them are going to have access to kind of the new model, sort of like day zero of release. Some of them might lag a little bit. Some of them might still have access to some older models because we've got telemetry that says people are using them in that base. But I think we're seeing a bit more convergence on it. But like I said, I tend to just run auto because I would prefer to delegate that decision making to something that is going to be a bit more informed on what I'm asking it to do, and then make the best use of the tokens and the costs that I've got available, rather than, like I said, I could throw everything in a 4.8 model and I know it would give great results, but I'm going to burn through tokens so fast, and then I have a very sad couple of weeks waiting for it to be reset.
Well, like since you mentioned auto to me, I had always been using auto as well, and I always found that like really effective. If at any point what we were doing, the model started to go down a rabbit hole, I would then switch to another model to give it a new thinking hat. And generally I choose not the latest, most expensive model, because not just they're super expensive, but also the latest model is perhaps not as fully bedded in. So I'd like choose Claude Sonnet like 4.6, I think, which is like a -1 model. And that was pretty successful. But since build, I've noticed that often when I pick auto, it like the first thing it's saying to me is, oh, you haven't downloaded this model. Do you want to download that now? And it's like pushing a new, I think it might be the Microsoft model on me. And then it can't do it because the context window is not big enough on that model. It's a small model.
Right.
And so normally I would have said auto is great because it's 10% cheaper and it picks the best model for the best task. But I feel like at the moment, or maybe it's just me as a Microsoftie, it's trying to get me to test a Microsoft model that isn't enough for me when I'm trying to do a lot of stuff agentically. I don't want to do small tasks. I want to have it like spin up the whole app for me. I'm really seeing how much it can do. So yeah. Auto's mostly good though, not for me right now.
Well, Anyway, can I say, rather than getting into the philosophical discussions on which is the right model to use and stuff like that, let's talk about a couple of other things that we can do with the Copilot app. So we've got quick chat. So like if I just wanted to like ask something that's unattached to a particular repo or anything like that, explain a concept to me or things like that, then it will go ahead and do that. And that is just what the quick chat section is. But then we can add repos. So I can say, I want to open up a repo from GitHub somewhere. So I can, these are just repos that I've recently been working on, or I can type in something that I want to do. And it doesn't have to be a repo from like your account or your org. It can be a repo that you want to create a fork of and contribute a pull request to. But I've got a couple of sessions that I've been running recently. We'll notice that I've got some little icons against them. So this one here is, or actually, this one here is, I was just starting a session. I'll talk about what that session is doing, but it's got a question. It needs my input here. So it's just like, what do I want to do? So I'm going to answer that question. Yep, create this as a project scope. Then I can come across to this one here and I can answer the question that it's got. And we can see that the one that I answered is back into work in progress. So we see the kind of little dot animations running on it. I've got another one down here that has a question. So I end up with all these ones that I need to go back and deal with. I can see ones that have opened pull requests. These purple ones are merged pull requests now. So they're sessions that I was working on and finished. This one down here, I was actually doing some work with it. And if we just close that off. So I was doing some work in this session and it was based off of a bug that, or an issue someone had raised. And then there was two different things that they suggested fixing. Rather than putting that both into the single pull request, I actually got it to then work with, so I created a sub session, which forked the conversation and then built out a second pull request that was independent of it, which is kind of cool. Like, so now we have, not trying to just jam everything into a single session, but we can see how the things are related to each other.
That's cool.
So I've seen a question around around Azure DevOps, and I'll come back to that one in a moment, just because it's going to be, funnily enough, it was one of the most common questions that we got asked while we were actually at build and demoing this off. But I'll talk about how this works in context of what it's doing, and then bring that, I guess, kind of full circle back towards like the Azure DevOps, and specifically from the view of the GitHub Copilot app. So the way the GitHub Copilot app, and kind of what makes a difference, and Michelle alluded to this before, is that rather than working with inside of the, like with inside the folder that you initially cloned for, when you start a new session, by default, it's going to create a new work tree, and you'll see that down here in this drop-down list. We can change this to a couple of different options. So Cloud, if I want to delegate this to Cloud Coding Agent and get that run on GitHub that way, or I can work in the local repository, so just in the clone that I've done. But like I said, new work tree is what it wants to default to, and is what I tend to leverage. So if you're unfamiliar with Git worktrees, it's a way to create a local clone of your repo that is then attached back to the origin clone, or we'll call it an upstream, which has then got the upstream of a remote at github.com. And this worktree is fully isolated. So anything that's happening in that worktree doesn't affect any other clones that you've got on your machine or other worktrees and things like that. From an agentic development perspective, this is fantastic. It means that I can have multiple agents running on multiple concurrent work streams that are not going to clobber each other. There's nothing more painful than like you in VS Code, you've got a couple of chat sessions going and two agents want to edit the same file, and which one's going to win? Well, one's going to write to it and the other one's going to overwrite to it, and you end up with just conflicts working locally. So back to the question around Azure DevOps. This concept works perfectly fine with Azure DevOps because fundamentally this is working with Git. Now, where you don't get maybe the best Azure DevOps integration, because this is the integration that this app has specifically with GitHub, is that when I create a new session, I can choose where I want to create that session from. So I can choose to create it from a branch. So like a particular branch I might have in that repo. Maybe it was something that a colleague of mine has worked on and they've pushed up that branch, or we've got a dev branch and a release branch and I need to fix something in a release branch. I can select pull request. So if I want to pick up on a pull request that a team member has worked on, or that I was working on yesterday, and I want to, and I got some feedback, and I want to iterate on that, or I can open up issues. And what this does is, if I do issues or pull requests, is that immediately starts the context of the session on that issue or pull request. So it brings it in. As I said, we don't get that obviously with Azure DevOps because it doesn't talk Azure DevOps, but there is a way that we can do some of that. And that is with what I have being built right now. I'm just going to collapse the side panel there so we've got a bit more space. So something that we announced with the Copilot app is this concept of a canvas. So a canvas is, well, we've got this panel on the side where I can see things like the file changes that have been made. I can open up a terminal if I want to do something in the terminal. I want to git status on the terminal, or I want to do like an npm run dev or whatever the case may be. I do have a built-in browser as well, so I can actually load up a browser or a markdown editor and things like that. But Canvas allows me to install or run essentially a custom application within inside of this Copilot application. Now, what does that mean for Azure DevOps? Well, you could actually be running like a web view of Azure DevOps, or you create a canvas that is then talking to the Azure DevOps API and then produces out a summary view that's going to be relevant for what's happening here. So, it could be showing just like this week's sprints of the backlog. It could be showing like a list of pull requests, things like you could have a variety of different canvases that are all doing different things. Now, maybe that's something that the Azure DevOps team is going to build and ship out, so you don't have to build it yourself. I don't know. I'm not involved with that team. But at the very least, like right now, you could use this to quite easily bring that view in. Like I said, for the less technical members of the team, the people that they want to be able to view the issue backlog and stuff like that, they could do that with inside of this tool. And because the session is aware of canvases, the session can actually talk to a canvas. So you could say, okay, I want to start working on issue 1, 2, 3, 4, and it can find that issue, assign it to you in the because it can talk over to the canvas, which I think is pretty cool. But I built a little snake game because it's like that. And now while my agent is working, I can play Snake.
I feel like, so when I was watching the recaps for the GitHub Copilot app, everything was going so fast and there was so much stuff in there that I couldn't even conceptualize it. So this is great, you showing us a little bit slower. But is it like, it seems like all of the great stuff that we had all over the place is like right there in this app. So those isolated environments, that's like code spaces, but more lightweight. I mean, more immediate.
Yes, exactly. So rather than spinning up like a whole new code space and a whole new virtual machine, you're running this ultimately locally. Now, that does mean that like if your application is designed, it will always run on a particular HTTP port. Then you do run the risk of like the agent can't run multiple because it like only one thing can be bound to that port. It also has the limitation, like if you're talking to a shared database server that you've got installed rather than running databases inside of, say, a container, you do end up with like you could have an agent that's trying to add something to a database schema while another agent isn't aware of that, and you break your ORM. Again, these are things that you have to start thinking about how you design your application to work with more concurrent agentic workflows happening. But this is a tool that can help you achieve that concurrent development work. But it doesn't mean that it's solving the way that your application is designed around that sort of problem. But yeah, like I said, I've been using this a lot, and if we view back here, I've got a lot of different sessions that have been up and running, and I find it quite valuable for. I would be reviewing some issues and be like, oh, it'd be great to work on that, so I can start that session. It gets going, but then when I'm ready, I can then say, actually, let's use this one as an example. So this one has had a bunch of changes done. I was doing some work on some of my GitHub actions. I'm like, you know what? I actually want to. I find the diff view here is maybe a little bit too condensed for what I would like to see. That's fine. I can just click this button and say open in VS Code. Or more specifically, this is open in VS Code Insiders. And we just bring that up. So that has then opened that session in VS Code Insiders. I can come to Copilot Chat here, and here is that active session that, oops, if I click on it properly, reset filter. There we go. So I've got that session. It's actually been brought across from Copilot App. And if I come back to Copilot App, maybe I don't want to use Insiders. I could use VS Code. I can launch an external Windows terminal. If I was doing a .NET application, I could launch into Visual Studio. If I had PyCharm installed because I was using, I'm doing a Python application, I could launch it. It's aware of Editor 0 on your machine. So this can be that harness to get you started, and then you take that across up level to maybe a more advanced bit of tooling that you want to use for the next phase of the work that you're undertaking. And again, I think that's the kind of thing that can be missed by just not experimenting a bit more with this. And yeah, it's like, oh, what's that button do? Yeah.
Like my brain is totally going, because where you were talking about, not having a database in the back end and all of that, I saw that in one of the demos where they said, yeah, you just use this, and she spun it up and it was using Fabric. Do you remember what that one's called?
Yeah, so that was another project that we announced to build. It's called Raffine.
Raffine,
so it's
that's it.
Yes, Microsoft. So here it is. All right, so this is done as an extension out of the Microsoft Fabric team. So the idea is to be able to build out, building out kind of that the back end for an agentic application requires a whole heap of stuff, things like authentication, data storage, and a variety of other aspects to it. And that's what Raffine is designed to do. Like, how do you quickly take an idea and turn that into something that you could action on? So, and then have that as a seamless deployment pathway into Azure. In this case, because it's what Raffine is. It has an SDK so that you can then work with the stuff that it's exposing, like your data connections to your Fabric database, to like storage accounts, like where do you upload digital assets, so PDFs or images and things like that. How do you do authentication? All of that is kind of taken care of out of the box with Raffine, rather than you having to go and build an authentication server, build a database backend, build a connection between them, and so on and so forth. You can focus on the core business value that you're trying to get. How do I visualize the information that's in there? How do I put in proper access control so that people can only get to the right things? How do I implement the rules and design of the application that I've got? Not so much the kind of guff that sits around that. The forms over data aspect of it. That's going
to manage and generate the back-end infrastructure for me, which is the stuff that hurts my head normally. I mean, it has, like, AI coding tools are normally pretty good at producing the front ends. That's been like really useful to me in the last year or so. But back ends are usually where like my head explodes, because I need authentication, APIs, policies, persistence, deployment, discipline. And so like Raffine is just like, wow, that is the answer to all of my infrastructure issues. I can just, especially in agentic development, it can just stitch it all together for me and throw it all up. I love that idea.
Yep. Let me pop this link into chat as well for people. So this is a sample application built on top of Raffine, built by one of my colleagues in the DevRel team. He did a session. So the session is OD 810, where he actually goes through how to build this application and run it on with Raffine. So if you want to go and dive a bit more into Raffine, go check that out. Like I haven't played with Raffine yet, other than like I grabbed this code and started having a poke around it to get some of the basic ideas. But yeah, it's a little recipe management application that he's built. So yeah, go check it out. And I said, you don't need to then worry about your backends and all that kind of stuff, because that is something that AI is very good at developing. But implementing your nuanced business rules, your specific use cases and things like that, that's where you, as the developer, that's the value that is really hard to articulate to AI, and that you can then put over the top of what's being built as a backend as a service.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. I totally derailed you mid.
No.
Was there anything? Well, I feel like there's a million things in that Copilot app, and I had been telling everyone that I always prefer to do all of my stuff in code spaces because I'm in the cloud, and I don't do stuff locally on my machine because I don't want to fill it all up again, because I was in a scenario where I had a 4-year-old laptop that was just full of all my code. But now this, it's not like, it doesn't have to all be on your machine, but it is giving me a good reason to do stuff locally again.
Yep. Yeah. And another thing that I guess is I just wanted to show off this is that it also supports plan mode. I mentioned that with automations, but this is the plan mode view. So this is something that I'm building out. Like, how do we do some pull request risk scanning with awesome Copilot. So I've just been brainstorming that with this session here with Copilot. It's built out a plan. I can see that this is the task list that it's defined for how it would go ahead and implement that. I can go ahead and read that plan, and it's asking, how do I want to prompt prompt it myself, or make any modifications, or let's just kick Copilot off, and it can go ahead and do that plan as well. So that'll run through, and it'll just work away in the background. It may or may not finish before we finish before the session's up. And our little snake game is doing a whole bunch of stuff. It will finish at some point in time.
Could you also, sorry, I'm totally derailing you with all my excitement about this stuff, but just like the rubber duck agent, could you show that as well, how that works and what that is?
Yes. Let me see if I have. I think I've got rubber ducky happen in here. So when relying on like the agent to go ahead and build a bunch of stuff for you, it would be good to get that peer review essentially done by the agent itself, as well as from by you. So I'm gonna let me scroll up through this session and see if rubber ducky ran. So the rubber ducky idea is something that we have added to Copilot. It's in CLI, and it's also in Copilot app. I think it's in VS Code. I'm not 100% sure, but let me have a look. This, I know I had a session doing it recently. Anyway, essentially what it does is when the agent is doing its work, it will then get a different model to do essentially a peer review of what's happened. It's probably not this one. This is a very small change. I probably can't find one particularly easily. So what it'll do is it will get a different model to do that peer review. So let's say that it was something that was like the initial implementation was done by a GPT family of models. You would then have maybe a Opus family of models do that peer review for you, which then by the time it gets to you as the human that is going to look at it and make the final determination on whether or not it's been done correctly, well, you have a bit more confidence that the AI has done a good solid amount of effort to see if it has done it correctly, without and not just put in some of the really dumb stuff that models have a tendency to do. Can't find an example of rubber duckies though. It's probably on one of my other machines.
I did wonder, like, well, I mean, yeah, how I guess it was described was, yeah, it's gonna, like I had a guy the other day and he was asking, can I have coding agents review the work of other coding agents? And Rubber Duck is definitely doing that, right? It is doing
Yep.
that. But there is one thing I did want to mention, because with like usage-based billing right now, everyone's looking for ways to optimize and do things more cheaply. And one of the ways where people are using up all their tokens is if they have just turned on all the tools. So if they're using RubberDuck and they've turned on like 1 million MCP servers and they're just like, adding everything in, then agents will get super excited and just, talk to all their friends and do all of their stuff. So one little warning we want to give, all of these tools are super, super useful, but don't just turn everything on willy-nilly. Use the things as you need to use them. Be smart about it. And yeah, then you can get the best use out of stuff. It's a great tool, but don't go crazy.
Exactly. Well, I feel like there's probably we've done a good amount of stuff on Copilot App, but there was a heap of other announcements at Build. So let's continue on, because otherwise you and I, we're going to talk about GitHub Copilot the whole time. But I think the other really cool one that was announced is these new the new Microsoft AI models, and I had that brief. We saw that briefly inside of my all models list. We'll see if I come down here. MAI Code 1 Flash. So this is a model that we as Microsoft have produced. We actually have a family of new models. We have image generation models, we have voice models, we have reasoning models, we have transcription, and obviously coding models. And like that means that instead of relying on, say, a third party that may have different policies on top of the Microsoft policies around something like data retention, this is a model that we're able to be, I guess, a bit more transparent around that sort of stuff. It will give you that level of confidence around, say, data retention and things like that.
We got to finish in 2 minutes.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay. Other cool things that we talked about that came out at Microsoft Build was the OpenCore. OpenCore, I know, is like it's really popular at the moment as that kind of agentic companion with inside of like on your machine that is not coding related, but running this on Windows has been traditionally a little bit challenging or a little bit less desirable just because of the way the sandboxing works. So the OpenCore Windows node, that's something that Scott Hanselman has been working with the OpenCore team to build out. So it's a native Windows application. And we've also built out a new sandboxing layer with inside of Windows. It's called MXC, I think, or MXE. Anyway, the acronym is not super relevant, but this allows you to give really fine-grained control to agents that are running on your machine. So in this case, if we come down here, so like this sandbox, like what folders is it going to have access to, and what permissions at a per folder basis. So you might want it to have read write to your downloads folder, but to your documents folder, you want it to have read only and things like that. So kind of expand that out. And this is all being built in the open in collaboration with the OpenCore team. Yes. Look at that. We haven't had a slide for that one.
We did. And I've shared that repo in the chat. So yeah, check that out, because obviously OpenCore was pretty scary until you have it running securely inside your containers. And then that's not as scary. And then obviously we have the enterprise version, which we're calling Scout, which is even more protected. And I've got that running on my machine right now, and love to show you, but we don't have any time, I'm afraid, today. So yeah, thanks for joining us. And maybe Aaron will come back on New Breakpoint and show us some more new things in longer form.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. And yeah, see you next time, I guess.
Yep. Thanks, folks. We'll see you on the next episode.